Yeah.
timberland, and hemp would compete with timber. And then
Yeah.
in the 1920s, you'd see guys like Andrew Mellon and David Rockefeller uh, have a lot of influence in what newspapers printed and what governments said. And they had oil, and hemp ethanol would be the number one competitor to their oil sales. So yeah, that corporations in the teens and 20s would have an effect on stigmatizing cannabis. But I think at the beginning it was just started off as racism, white supremacy. The Indian Hemp Drug Commission report of
Yeah.
1894-95
Yeah.
was this newspaper article. You see image of the San Francisco Chronicle from the 24th of August, 1895. It says, Festival of the Hemp Eaters and the Wild Delirium of the Dance. The first visual depiction of cannabis-based delirium may have been in the 1895 in an article entitled Hashish Eaters of Syria. The article mentions the deadly drug hashish and describes one of the many orgies that consist mainly of drinking a cannabis beverage, dancing, and then falling asleep. The accompanying illustration depicts men dancing about, waving their swords and shooting their guns in the air. The caption below the photo reads, Festival of the Hemp Eaters and the Wild Delirium of the Dance.
Yeah.
Etymology dictionaries indicate delirium is the Latin word meaning madness. So reefer madness finally had an image to go along with the narrative. And this is the beginning of depicting the people who use cannabis as being crazy.
Okay.
This would be the first example of that I could find.
So, what was the American drug policy about cannabis and hemp in that decade, about 1890s to 19?
Well, complete ignorance when it came to the use of it for smoking in joints.
Okay.
A little bit of knowledge about the smoking of it in hookahs. There was smoking parlors in New York and other cities.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the use and knowledge around cannabis was as a pharmaceutical drug. It's found
Okay.
in drugstores since the 1860s.
All right.
And it was found in many medicines. So many medicines, it was possibly one of the top three, if not the top pharmaceutical medicine at the time. It's found in over 600 different medicines.
Wow. So why didn't at that time the pharmaceutical industry, they were, well, obviously they were profiting from it. Like, why didn't they go against the government or like join together and make a forum and then at least have their voice heard?
The biggest ones of those also made synthetic medicines, and you couldn't patent the natural, but you could patent the synthetic. So they sought to their economic advantage to be able to create exclusivity for themselves by outlawing the natural and monopolizing on the synthetic.
Yeah, that makes sense. They gotta make money. It's all about money in this world for now.
Yeah, it's about greed.
That's about human greed. Yeah, it never ends. There was a panic in stock market in 1893, and that about that time they're starting slowly pivoting towards synthetic drugs. Do you think that that kind of have an effect on the pharma companies as well?
Maybe, but really the technology to create synthetics in the first place had just arrived. Aspirin, I believe, was 1894. Same with heroin. Real synthetic, the sulfa drugs started in 1906, I think. So
Okay.
you start to see the beginning of synthetic medicine at the turn of the century. And before that, it was mostly plant-based drugs.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's why I like how they slowly started pivoting towards more synthetic, as you mentioned, like control, like supply and control, and creating demand.
You
And
could patent something that you invented.
yeah,
But for a while, anyway, you could not patent anything you discovered.
yeah,
So their interest was to make as much money as they could for their stockholders in the shortest amount of time, and that was patent medicines, not not botanical medicines that people could grow in their backyards and supply themselves with.
So who introduced all those medicinal cannabis to US in back in the days in 1880s or 90s?
Well, I think it was. I think it started in the 1860s. Yeah, well, you start to see hemp and cannabis and ganja and bang show up in herbals in the 1700s and 1800s. But there was this one researcher called O'Shaughnessy, and he was I think he's Scottish, and he was in India at the time. And in 1839, he wrote an article about how cannabis was a good medicine. And then in the 1840s, you'd see the Dr. Moreau de Tours in Paris, kind of bring a bunch of hashish candy back with him from, I think it was Egypt. And he would share it with artists and writers and poets. And they had a hashish club there. And then by 1860, everybody had heard about it. 1857, there was a book written in America called The Hashish Eater. And so by the 1860s, you'd see it appear everywhere, all over the world, in pharmacopoeias and pharmacies, and the big drug companies were all selling it. There's Eli Lilly, powdered and dried buds. You could get syrups. You could get tinctures. You could get pills. Everything. You name it.
You name it, you get it.
Yeah.
Ask for it. Thou shalt be given if thou shalt ask. So I have a question. It's like generates curiosity. So if they have tinctures, they have tablets, they have bottles, like they have everything. So then, well, they still can. Yeah, they have joints. They can patent that. Like, why they have?
No, they couldn't patent it. Patents were for inventions, not discoveries, and this qualified as a discovery.
But even now, we are jumping like almost 100 years. So even now, the companies, they're getting patents for.
They're trying to. I mean, a lot of them could be challenged under something called prior art, and that is, if something existed in the past, it couldn't be patented.